For those of you who aren't already, make sure you follow us on our social media pages that are listed right in front of you right now. That's where we're going to make sure anytime the NCAA or any governing body makes any announcements regarding the recruiting calendar, you're going to see that coming from us first. So just be on the lookout for that, and let us know if you guys have any questions after the webinar.
All right, so I think we can get going. Ready, Mike?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, awesome, guys. So thanks for joining us tonight. What we're going to be talking about is the recent NCAA announcement surrounding COVID-19, how that's going to be affecting the recruiting process, and really what you should be doing during this time. So first, before we dive into tonight's topics, we just like to introduce ourselves so you guys know who you'll be working with tonight. So my name's Emily. I'm a senior insights analyst over here at Sports Recruits. A little bit about my recruiting process. I was strictly looking Division III, where I ended up playing basketball at Franklin and Marshall College, a small liberal arts school located in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And during my time there, I worked in the athletic department. I worked with various different teams, and I was also the assistant to the associate athletic director. Now being over here at Sports Recruits, Mike and I's main role is to work with families one-on-one throughout their recruiting process and just really make sure that they're on the right track.
Yeah, and hello everyone, my name is Mike. I was also a Division III athlete, just like Emily. I attended a school called Mount Ida College, located in Newton, Massachusetts, right outside of the Boston area. After that, I then moved on to become a graduate assistant and tight ends coach at Long Island University, which is where I'm originally from, where I earned my master's in school counseling. Then after I finished up at LIU, I then moved on to another school in the Long Island area called Malloy College, where I served and enrolled an admissions counselor for 2 years. So again, really happy to be with you guys here tonight, talking about all the different recruiting updates that's happened within the last week or so, and hopefully we'll answer any of the questions that you guys have to start.
Awesome. Yeah. And if you guys have any questions during the webinar, please write them in the Q&A section. Mike and I will do our best to answer them throughout the webinar, but if not, we have carved out time at the end to answer those for you.
Yes.
So for tonight's agenda, first, we're just going to talk about really what the NCAA came out with last week. Then Mike's going to walk us through what you should be doing during this time, and then really how the different tools of Sports Recruits will be able to help you. And then finally, we're going to end with that Q&A. Great. So what is happening? So here's a great image. And also too, this recording is going to be posted on our webinar website and is also going to be emailed to you guys as well. So you'll be able to pause this and take a screenshot of if you want, or take a screenshot now. But really, this just breaks down the different NCAA divisions, the NAIA, and then the NJCAA. So the Division I Council came out last week stating that they are going to be pushing back that dead period through June 30th. So what is a dead period? We're going to talk about that in a little, but that means there is no in-person recruiting. Division II, their recruiting dead period is going to go through May 31st. So in about 2 weeks, that'll end. And then they're going to move into a quiet period. So this quiet period is going to last until June 1st until June 30th. So that is when that quiet period is going to happen. What does a quiet period mean? Again, we'll dive into that. But that means that there will be in-person recruiting only on that school's campus. There will no be in-person recruiting outside of that school's campus. The Division III has not explicitly communicated any recruiting restrictions. However, we do see them following in suit with D1 and D2 dead period protocol. There was a Division III conference, the NESCACs. They came forward, I want to say about a few weeks ago, stating that they're going to be pushing out their dead period until June 15th. So we really see that being, led into the campus's individual decisions, how they see fit, what they think their staff should be doing. NAIA, on a similar page with the D3, they have not explicitly come forward regarding any recruiting restrictions. And then finally, the NJCAA, they are lifting the in-person recruiting ban. They lifted that last week, on May 15th. So keep in mind, the NCAA isn't the only regulator. There are a lot of things to think about, and there's a lot of moving parts in terms of the recruiting process. With Division II being in a quiet period, they are allowing campuses, or they're allowing prospective student athletes to come on campus and get evaluated. However, there are different people that are regulating this as well. There's state regulations, there's campus regulations. Some campuses may be shut down for the
Right.
summer. And if that's the case, then these Division II schools can't have that in-person recruiting. Also, Mike and I were discussing, before this webinar, we're in New York. We're still in a shelter in place. So a Division II school, they can't have someone on their campus, but, say a school in Georgia, they would be able to have that in-person recruiting aspect.
Yeah, it really is going to be sorry,
No, go ahead.
a case-by-case basis when it comes to how those schools are going to react. Best way to get that info, if you were in a situation where you were planning on attending a particular event, where D2 or D3 coaches were going, just reach out, see if that still is on their radar, if they are going to be limited based on any sort of state regulations. So again, just communication is really the best way to find out if that school will be able to host you or not.
Yeah, exactly. And just reaching out to college coaches, and we're going to talk about this later in the webinar, but just letting them know, hey, this is my schedule. Will you be able to come? Now more than ever, it's going to be really important to be communicating with these college coaches to see where they at in terms of traveling. Also, just wanted to share this. This was on our webinar last week, but just some changes with the ACT and SAT. The SAT has added an extra test date on September 26th. Now you guys have some downtime. There are a bunch of free resources online for you guys to really buckle down and start, practicing for these tests. Keep in mind, both of these organizations will be posting any updates in regards to the tests over the summer. So here we just wanted to dive in a little deeper. So what exactly is a dead period? What is this dead period that Division I and Division II are talking about? So a dead period is when there is no face-to-face contact or evaluations allowed by college coaches to their prospective athletes. During this time, it is not permissible to allow official or unofficial visits by prospective student athletes to the institution's campus. So keep in mind, this dead period is for Division I, also Division II until May 31st. However, and this is super important, you are still able to talk to college coaches, whether that be email, whether that be phone call. And this also includes, video conferencing, FaceTime, Zoom, Skype. We've seen and heard from a lot of families that they've been getting on FaceTime with college coaches, getting tours of the campus. I spoke to a student athlete today who said, I'm going to get on a Zoom call with other prospective student athletes, and the coach is going to, talk to us about where they are in their process and things like that. So college coaches are definitely getting creative with this aspect. And, this is the only thing right now that you have control of communicating, and that's something that Mike will talk about. So it is really important to continue this during this time. And then right here, what is a quiet period? So as stated by the Division II committee, it will be permissible to make in-person recruiting contacts with prospective student athletes only on the member's institution's campus, subject to applicable public health guidelines and institutional and conference decisions. So that end piece was what we were discussing earlier. This has to do with in-state shelter in place. If that state is still in a shelter in place, then they can't have student athletes on campus. And again, keep in mind, Division II coaches, they're not permissible to have in-person, off-campus recruiting contacts or evaluations. Great, and we just wanted to post this here, and I believe Mike, yes, he already did throw that, and we'll be throwing that in the chat, but here's just places that you can keep up to date on what's going on. We have our different blog posts here, NCAA coronavirus resources. They're always updating that as well. But like we stated earlier, our blog posts, our social media, whenever anything happens with the NCAA, we will be posting it there. The Division I Council is also subject to meet on May 27th to revisit that dead period. So we will be posting on May 27th whenever we hear what they will, if they will be pushing it back or they will be lifting it at that time.
Yeah, and for those of you who are looking for those links, just check in the chat box right now. I just put a bunch of those in there, such as the Twitter pages for NCAA, NJCSA, some of the links to our blogs that we've written covering all of these updates as well, and also a link again to our Instagram page and all of our other social media channels, which will show us a little bit later on as well. So I'm going to get into what you guys should be doing, and I just saw one of the last questions that came in the chat box is this particular webinar going to be recorded? As always, we record all of our webinars. You guys will be receiving an email, as Emily said, at some point tomorrow with the recording, and we also will be posting it on our webinar website. But yeah, let's get into what you should be doing now at this point. First and foremost, staying healthy is without a doubt the most important thing. If you're in an area of the country that is putting a shelter-in-place rules, or if you're in phase 1 or phase 2, wherever exactly you are at this period of time, make sure you're just following those guidelines to the best of your ability. When it comes to academics, keeping up your grades, that's not something that's going to be lost at this point. I know some of you might be getting pretty close to the start of your summer. Some of you might be maybe a month or so away. Just making sure that you're finishing strong. For those of you who are currently taking any AP exams, I want to wish you the best of luck while you're doing that. And also with any finals or any exams that you'll be taking moving forward. I know it's probably far from what you were expecting to do towards the end of your academic year, but just make sure you're putting your best foot forward when it comes to that. We're going to get into how to make sure your Sports Recruits profile in particular is as up to date as possible in a little bit. But again, just making sure when it comes to like different events, different videos that you have, keeping that as up to date as possible. You can see we have videos listed there, and that's absolutely something we're going to cover in detail in just a bit. Making sure you're keeping up with any schools that you've been in contact with. Letting them know what you've been up to, letting them know that you haven't let quarantine stop you from staying in shape, and just kind of honing your skills when it comes to whatever particular sport you're a part of. Talking to your coach about your favorites list, seeing, hey, here are the schools that I'm looking at. Do you think these schools are a good fit for me? Do you have any other schools in mind that you think would be a good fit if these ones aren't necessarily the best fit for me? So, and finally, making sure you follow the social media accounts of any colleges or teams that are on your list. That's something that's going to be really helpful. It's going to give you an inside look of how the team operates for the most part, especially when they do get back on campus. But along with that, they might be posting any updates about any sort of prospect days or showcases that might be on campus, whether they're going to be rescheduled, postponed to a later date, maybe sometime in the fall. That's where you can get the most up-to-date information about that particular program.
Yeah, I was just about to say that, Mike. It'll be good to know what they're doing with their campuses. And also, too, past this, there will be recruiting past everything that's going on with COVID-19. It's great to follow these social media accounts because they could be conversation starters and just ways to be up to date on everything that's happening.
Yeah. Another thing that I would add to this list as well that isn't posted right now is also filling out any recruiting questionnaires for any schools that you're interested in as well. That's also another great way to make sure that you're staying up to date with any announcements from the school, whether it be from an admissions perspective. Maybe they're having some sort of open house or virtual tour that is going to be available at some point soon, or specifically for the recruiting questionnaire, making sure you're getting anything about that particular program that you're interested in.
Yeah, definitely important. Now with having a little downtime, filling out those questionnaires will be great.
Definitely. So, when it comes to video, this is something that's become so important, more important than ever before, probably when it comes to the recruiting process. And we've seen people get really creative when it comes to putting videos together. There might not be specific like in-person live action games that coaches can attend and watch you play at this point. So you got to get creative, whether it's working out in your garage or in the backyard or in a field, if you have the ability to do so, just letting coaches know that you're out there, you're doing everything you can under your power to make sure that you're keeping your skills you're staying in shape and keeping your skills up to date as well. We've seen a lot of people also put about me videos out there also. So maybe you have some training videos and some different drills that you're making available to coaches, but sometimes coaches just want to hear a little bit about who you are, what you like outside of sports, maybe the major that you're interested in. So that's something that we've seen a lot of people do as well. Weight training has without a doubt become very popular at this time too. Maybe you've, since my background is football, maybe you've improved on your squat or your bench or their 40 time and those things that coaches really put a lot of weight in. So those are definitely the types of things that you can be including. Cardio, again, staying in shape, conditioning. Whenever it's time for you guys to go back to practice, you're probably going to see those people who did stay in shape and those who did not pretty early on in that first practice. So make sure you're going to be one of the ones who would stay in shape, or those who kind of use quarantine as an opportunity just to kind of sit back and relax. You don't want to be towards the end of the line when it comes to that conditioning stuff. So Also, we've seen a lot of people update old videos. So maybe you have some footage from your most recent season that you had the opportunity to play in. Maybe you have some more clips that you never really put into the most up-to-date highlight reel. So going through some old footage, trying to find the most information that you can give to college coaches to just make your play and your style of play and your potential as available as possible. And again, creativity is kind of the main idea of this overall slide. Maybe have some different trick shots that you can do for a particular sport that you can play. And again, just making sure you're keeping coaches as updated as you can throughout this time. So now we're going to get into just how to use sports recruits directly. So this is your student athlete profile. The number one thing you can do is just make sure that you keep this as up to date as you can. So that's your athletic, your academic, and your personal information. So from the athletic side of things, making sure, again, video is going to be a main target of that. Maybe any particular statistics that coach want to hear about, or metrics that they look at, such as a 40-yard dash, a 60-yard dash, velocity if you're a softball or a baseball player, anything along those lines. You want to make sure that you're giving the most up-to-date information for those coaches. Academically, that's going to be your most up-to-date transcript. Those of you who might be taking AP courses, SATs, ACTs, anything that shows that you're finishing the school year strong is absolutely something you can include to college coaches. Again, video, we're going to keep hammering down that fact because it has become so important at this time. And the best part about this, one of the best parts about the Sports Recruits profile is that anytime a college coach does view something on your profile, such as a video, a transcript, a press link, anything that you've kind of uploaded that is clickable, those are the different types of things that they're going to be able to see. To kind of go back to video for just one more moment, there's a lot of ways you can get video up on your Sports Recruits profile. If it's something that's on your iPhone or on your computer or a hard drive, it's as simple as just kind of dragging and dropping it and uploading it right into that section. But let's say your high school or your club team uses something like Huddle or Vimeo or YouTube, and that's where they put all of their information. You actually just take the link of that particular video, copy and paste it, and embed that link into your profile as well. And whether you upload it or embed the link, it's still going to come up as a profile view from that college coach if they were to click on it. Again, we try and make it as user-friendly as possible. If anyone ever does have issues with kind of uploading video to their profile, we have our customer service team who is outstanding at helping out with that. So feel free to reach out to us if you have any issues about just trying to make that video available to college coaches. To get a little bit more specific within video, let's talk about some of the different highlight reel options that you have when it comes on Sports Recruits. The highlight reel editor is something that has really blown up since quarantine has began. We give people the opportunity to take the footage that they have of themselves and actually create their own highlight videos in this editor here. So maybe you have a couple of clips that you want to combine into one particular video. We give you the opportunity to put them in the order that you'd like, rank these particular clips 1 to 5 stars, put in an explanation or a description of what exactly is happening in that clip. And again, just kind of combining those clips together to make it a little bit easier for the college coach to watch a number of clips all in one shot rather than having to click on each individual video. So that's something that we've seen a lot of people utilize in the last couple of months, and hopefully you guys have an opportunity to do that if you haven't already done so. Another, I'll just quickly touch on the professional highlight reels as well as something that Sports Recruits offers. If you guys are looking for something a little bit more legitimate when it comes to isolation effects, maybe some music in the background, those types of things, that's also something we can help you out with. And again, feel free to reach out to our customer service team if that's something that you're interested in as well. To kind of go into, and personally, my favorite part of the Sports Recruits platform, which is the messaging system, this makes it as easy as possible to get in contact with college coaches. When me and Emily were trying to get recruited for athletics, it would take us 15, maybe 20 minutes before we even start the message because we were trying to track down who's the best coach to reach out to on these staff directory websites. We basically have done that part of the job for you so you could focus more of your time on focusing on what exactly you want to say to these coaching staffs. We have every single athletic program in the country integrated into our platform, keeping it as up to date as we possibly can. You'll be able to reach out to these coaches directly from here, and you're going to be able to send messages to any college coaches that you'd like. We're also going to include a link to your player profile in every single message that you send, which is extremely helpful because you won't have to copy and paste or add any videos yourself. And that's what we're able to track for you, which tells you which college coaches and which coaching staffs, more specifically, are viewing your profile and viewing what's on your profile, such as videos, transcripts, and the things we explained prior.
Yeah, and Mike and I always get this question of who should I be emailing? Should I just email the head coach? Should I email the assistant coach? Email the full coaching staff. You know,
Definitely.
The more computer screens you can get on, the more exposure you're going to get.
Yeah, for sure. See, again, just giving you that area of transparency, right? So that link that we include in every message that you send, that's what's going to take you directly to the player profile, and that's what's going to also trigger those notifications that you are going to receive. So you're always going to know when you're getting some sort of interest from a college program. They don't have to necessarily contact you back in terms of a message. If they're just kind of clicking around and seeing what you have available, you guys are also going to be able to see that interest. So it's going to make it much easier for you to determine which schools you will be following up with as you progress through your recruiting process.
Yeah, and also, depending on how young you are, a college coach can't
Very true.
necessarily say, hey, Mike, I'm really interested in bringing you on for our 2022 recruiting class. Keep up doing X, Y, and Z. Because of recruiting rules, depending on your sport and depending on the division, a college coach may not necessarily be able to say that to you. So if they're taking the time to look at your highlight reel, watch your skills video, things like that, there is obviously some interest there. So that's what makes this tool just so powerful.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. So now we're going to get into the different types of messages you might be sending to college coaches and what you should be saying in those particular messages. We're going to start with an introduction message first, since that is going to be kind of your way of letting these college coaches know that you have an interest in their program. So in terms of what you're going to be including, the basics. So who you are, where you're from, what position you play if you're on a team sport, your grad year, what club you play for, the high school that you go to, and maybe some contact information for your high school or club coaches. You definitely want to let them know that you're hoping that their family is healthy and safe at this time, and hoping them that and wishing them well. Always make sure that you express your interest in in that school or program, and give specific reasons why. The two examples that I like to use are, if you have an idea of what type of major you're interested in, letting them know if you've done some research and see that they have a very strong program in business or pre-med or nursing or whatever it is you might be interested in doing it for your college degree. And also maybe something specifically about athletics. Maybe they had a really good season last year, or they improved their most recent season from 2 years ago, or they have a new coach and you've been following that particular coach as they've been kind of progressing through different schools. So those are all different things that you could mention to let coaches know why you have a sincere interest in their program. One question that comes up a lot is the subject line, what you should be adding in there. And usually it's a lot of what that first bullet, what the basics is what you should be including in that subject line. So your name, your maybe where you're from, your position, and your grad year is extremely important, because that's going to let that college coach know what type of recruiting conversation they can have with you, if at all, at that time. So for example, if you're a baseball player and you're a 2023 graduate, you want to let them know that, because you don't want to put that college coach at risk of responding to you when they probably can't. Where at that time, if you're a 2023, they really can't have those specific recruiting conversations with you until a little bit later on in your recruiting process. To go into the different types of messages you might be reaching out during this stay-at-home situation that we're in right now. Again, making sure you're updating videos as much as you can. Your year-end transcripts is something that's going to be that a lot of college coaches are going to be requesting, and also any updated schedules. Maybe there's certain events that you have planned that you're going to be attending. Maybe they change dates, and you want to let those college coaches know what's going on with that. Maybe it's an event that they're all going to be attending, and you see them on that list, and you want to let them know that you will be attending. Anything involving your schedule, you definitely want to make sure you reach out at least a week before the event to give them some time to get on their predetermined list. And finally, maybe you're in a situation where you want to schedule a phone call with the coach just to ask some general questions about the campus, about the team, because right now, again, unless it is one of those schools that are going to be able to kind of open up their campuses and host some different student athletes at the Division II level, there might not be a lot of opportunities to get on campus. So phone calls and Zoom conferences might be the best way to do that.
Yeah, and I can't see the Q&A right now, but I'm sure we may get some of these questions. A lot of 2021s may be thinking, this summer was going to be really big for me. I was going to have in-person recruiting.
Right.
My suggestion to those people in those situations is doing exactly what Mike was saying. That last bullet point is asking these college coaches where they are in their recruiting process, if they're still looking for your position, and seeing if you can hop on a phone call. Mike and I have sat on a lot of college coaches Q&As, and they said, we're going to be transparent if we filled up the class, if we don't think they're a good fit, or if we want to hear more about them. Just like they would want you to be transparent with them if you're not interested in their program. So if you're a 2021 right now and, you're on this webinar and thinking about, what you should be doing and how you should be figuring out your list, that's definitely something that you can email your full list to really figure out, okay, where should I be focusing my time?
Yeah, definitely. Great point. Uh, one thing that Sports Recruits does, kind of outside of giving you the ability to send these messages and get your information as up to date as possible, is we make your recruiting process very, very organized. So we give everyone the opportunity to favorite any schools that they have an interest in. What that does, it kind of puts it in its own separate list. And we also give you the ability to kind of rank how these schools might work for your particular recruiting process. So maybe you're in a situation where a lot of high academic Division I schools, you might consider a reach. You might have some schools that you consider a fit, and there might be some schools that you kind of consider a safety school, whether that be on the academic or athletic side of things. Favoriting schools is something that we highly recommend. We usually try and we tell people to get to at least 20 schools. If you can get to 30, that's great as well. That's just giving you a chance to cast a wide net and learn a lot about a lot of different types of schools and programs and campuses. So you're in a situation where you can learn a lot. So you have a much better idea as you get closer to committing what schools are going to be the best fit for you.
Yeah.
Again, just went over that reach, fit, and safety schools a little bit here. Again, depending on the academic or athletic background of that school, it might be a little bit different compared to where exactly you are academically and athletically. But this is something that really helps a lot just to try and determine, which schools might be the best fit for you. And you definitely want to make sure that you're giving yourself an opportunity to look at some schools that might be a little bit past of what you typically would be a good fit for.
And now with having this extra downtime, you can take the time to really make sure that this is organized to where it can be helpful for you and your family to really, sit down and, take a look at your list and go through and maybe add some if you have a little more reach than you do safety.
Yeah, and one thing I would add about the favorites list on your Sports Recruits profile as well is that this is for your eyes only. So
Mm.
don't feel like because you have Cornell listed as number one and Virginia is number two, that Virginia is going to feel slighted because they're behind another school. They do not have access to see your ranking system or the list of favorites that you have. So that's something that should not be a concern at all. That's for your eyes only. So please add as many schools as you like, and don't feel like you have to be worried about having rivals next to each other or ranked a certain way. We're also going to talk about analyzing your list and the different things you should be considering as you're going through it. So again, reach, fit, or safety, that can be considered on the academic or athletic side of things. Popularity of the school is something that I think is really overlooked by a lot of student athletes. There's a lot of people who are interested in this school. Examples like Villanova and Duke University, they tend to get a lot of people drawn to them when it comes to sports recruits. It might be a little tougher to get in contact with those coaching staff. So having that understanding that it may take some more hard work to get on those really, really popular programs' radar. That also might open up the opportunity to look at some schools that might not be as popular in terms of the broad scheme of things, where you might want to look at some schools that you might have a little bit of a better opportunity to get in contact with that coaching staff. Again, being honest with yourself and getting that opinion from your athletic advocates and also your academic advocates when it comes to the academic side of things. Just making sure you're putting yourself in a situation to succeed, making sure you're asking people maybe outside of your household. I'm sure, those are definitely people who are definitely on your side and in your corner. But when it comes to trying to get as much of an unbiased opinion as possible, that's what you're looking to get when it comes to evaluating your overall talent and potential. And again, this list is fluid and it's going to be changing as you learn more about yourself of what you want to get out of the college experience. So making sure that you reassess and rebuild anytime you kind of think of something else. Maybe you decide that, maybe you don't want to get into business in a different major or something that you're interested in, or a particular area of the country, or you want to stay closer to home or further away. These are all things that are going to change as you guys get older. That's totally okay. That's totally normal. Just make sure that you're rebuilding and reassessing this list as you make those different decisions.
Totally.
So yeah, guys, just to kind of recap everything that we've gone over so far, Emily did a great job kind of explaining what has happened at this point.
Sorry.
No problem. What has happened so far when it comes to the recruiting process, how those different dates change based on D1, D2, D3, NAIA, and NJCSA. I then walked you guys through kind of the different things that you could be doing and what you should be doing right now, talking about video, updating your profile to the best of your ability, sending messages, introducing yourself, or just giving general updates. And again, just kind of a high-level look at how to use Sports Recruits to the best of your ability, whether it be adding schools as favorites, uploading any video that you have, and also sending messages to coaches directly. And again, we try and make it as user-friendly as possible for you guys. So hopefully those of you who have access will continue using it and be able to get in contact with the coaches that you have an interest in.
Awesome. So let's dive into questions. Again, just wanted to show this one last time, our different social media handles. Again, this is what you can follow to stay up to date on the recruiting process. May 27th is right around the corner.
Yes.
That's when the Division I committee is meeting. We will be posting on all of these channels whenever anything happens. So do make sure that you guys are following us.
Definitely.
Great. So we've had a bunch of questions that came in. I saw one that I did want to talk about. Some people were asking, does this dead period affect the June 15th contact date for Division One sports? So just to kind of summarize that, so depending on what sport you are, Division One coaches are able to reach out to you on June 15th going into your junior year or September 1st. That dead period does not affect that. The only thing that the dead period affects is in-person recruiting. On June 15th, they will still be able to reach out and contact you if you're a prospective student athlete they're interested in. So I just wanted to clear that up. That dead period will not affect that June 15th communication date.
See, someone asked if a questionnaire was completed a few months ago, should I fill it out again? Usually, you only have to submit that recruiting questionnaire once. I would just double check and see maybe when the last time you received an email from that particular program was. If it's been a long time and they have been making announcements since then, it might be a good idea. Just to resubmit that information just to make sure you're staying on top of things. But Emily, I know when you were at Franklin and Marshall, you worked with the recruiting database. Did people tend to have to fill that out more than once, or was one time usually good enough?
So I always recommend filling it, like updating it. Like if something big happens, you've got an SAT score that, you dramatically increased, fill it out again and put that in there. So things like that, you won't need to fill out the basic position, grad period, and things again. But if something significant has happened to you, you should definitely update it. And yeah, that was one of my jobs. It was literally just updating every questionnaire that came in.
Yeah, it's good info.
This is a good question. What are questions to ask in a video call with current players at a school? That's a great question. So if it's a current player, if it's a coach, if you're on like an admissions interview, you should always be asking questions that aren't easily on that program's website or on that school's profile or website as well. Like you shouldn't be asking, what was your record last year? Because you can easily look that up, and that's going to show that you've done your research and there is genuine interest in that school. Some questions that you could ask are, what's the vibe like, or what's the pregame ritual before a game? What's a popular major that a lot of you are studying? I'm interested in pre-med. Is that tough to have that major while also being a Division I, Division II, Division III athlete? So, something is what I tell my families. If it's not easily searchable, you can't search it, then you should be asking that.
Mm-hmm. So someone wrote here, what is the difference between the September 1st date and the June 15th date for a sophomore transitioning to junior year baseball? To kind of just go over those particular dates again, really depends on what sport you play and what division you're looking at. That depends on when you can have those recruiting specific conversations. So for some sports, it might be September 1st, I should say, as that particular recruiting conversation date. But for all Division II programs, it's going to be June 15th where you could start having those recruiting specific conversations. If you're not sure when exactly that particular date is for your sport, that information is definitely readily available online as well. But that's ultimately the biggest difference. And there also are some sports at the Division I level that also follow that June 15th date compared to September 1st.
Baseball is September 1st, though, for Division I.
Correct. Exactly.
Sorry, guys. We have a lot of good questions coming in. I just want to make sure I'm reading them. I'm very close to the screen.
See, it looks like someone wrote here, is it a good idea to reach out to current players of that program if you are interested in their college? Yeah, I think that's absolutely something that you can do. You're never sure what type of feedback you might receive. Another thing to kind of keep in mind too is if you are going to be attending any sort of virtual tours or when we get back to like kind of regular tours happening a little bit more little bit more. That's going to be happening at some point down the road too. A lot of the times they'll have a lot of the current athletes on like a Q&A board, or where you have an opportunity to ask some specific questions about the program as well. I know when I was at Mount Ida, whenever we had recruits come up on campus, coach might shoot us a text like, hey, can you come down to the office? Maybe just walk around this recruit for a little bit, answer any questions he has, or maybe the parents might have some questions too. So if it's through online, I think that's totally okay. But that also could be something where you have the opportunity to talk to current players, whether it's a virtual tour, or even when you're on campus at some point.
Two good questions. Actually, a lot of good questions just came in. Someone asked, as a women's lacrosse player, 2022, when am I allowed to contact coaches? As a student athlete, you can contact coaches at any time. These recruiting communication rules are just around college coaches. They are not around you. As a seventh grader, you can reach out to a college coach and you're not breaking any rules. To answer your question, a Division I coach can contact you until September 1st going into your junior year. A Division II coach can't contact you until June 15th going into your junior year. And in Division III, there are little to no recruiting rules, so they can contact you in seventh grade if they wanted to.
Right.
I see another one, Mike, and you can definitely hop in on this as well. So someone wrote, the NCAA has also left it up to the campuses in terms of letting spring athletes have another year of eligibility. So someone asked, how will that affect incoming recruiting?
Yeah, it's really going to be a case-by-case basis when it comes to that. Every campus is going to handle it differently. It's going to depend on how many seniors they had. We think for the large majority, a lot of those seniors who missed out on their senior year, unfortunately, we think a lot of them will move on. There will be certain instances where seniors do come back for that additional year that they received, but that is something that you do have to keep in mind. When it comes to that, just make sure you're staying in contact with those particular college coaches, right? If you're in a situation where you're a 2020 or 2021 commit, just check in with that coach and see if that is something that is going to be affected at all. They're going to be the person that has that most up-to-date information for you. Again, for the large part, I assume a lot of people will not be affected by that. But if you do have questions about it and you're not sure if any spots are going to be removed because of that particular situation, just make sure you're reaching out to that particular coaching staff, primarily the person who reached out to you as part of your recruiting, and they should be able to clear that up for you with any information that they have.
Yeah, and some programs aren't offering student athletes next year of eligibility. It's really going to be subjective. And also, it's a huge decision as a family financially to come back and do that other year. So again, I think, Mike said it perfectly. It's going to be case by case, program by program in terms of they're even offering that extra year.
Yeah. Here's a one that we get a lot too. Is it okay to reach out to a coach more than once if you not get activity on an email? If so, how much time in between and how often? Probably in my time at Sports Recruits, the most popular question that we get. And it's a great question, and that's why. We always say we wish we had that specific, perfect amount of time in between messages, but that's just really not how it works, unfortunately. But our rule of thumb that we tell every family that we speak to is anytime you have new information to include to a college coach, that is the best time to reach out again. So again, the first time you might reach out, that might be an introductory email, just letting them know that you have interest in their program. The next time you might have received those new transcripts from the most recent academic year. You want to make sure you make that available. The next time might be a video. Just make sure every single time that you are reaching out, there is some new information to include, and also restating that you have a sincere interest in their particular program. So we're not saying reach out every single day and just check in and repeat the messages that you're sending. Just make sure that the messages are different each time. Ballpark, I would say, maybe in that 2 to 3 week area. It also depends on what part of the year as well. In season, you might be reaching out a little bit more because you have some more footage available. But I would say, maybe in that neighborhood of anywhere from 3 to 5 weeks, and any input you have, love to hear too.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. That's what we tell our families. If there's something they should know, email them. Yep. We've talked to college coach. I've, sat down, like I said before, on Q&As, and they said, if they reach out and we don't respond, it doesn't mean we're not seeing the emails. Mm-hmm. Keep in mind, these, depending, again, how popular the school is, they could receive 100 emails a day. So just because they don't respond, don't get discouraged. But they said, if I don't hear from a prospective student athlete for 5 weeks, I may just assume that they've lost interest. So I always use that number as don't let too much time go past. You know,
Exactly.
there should be new news every 4 to 5
Yeah,
weeks.
for sure. Maybe we have time for one more, Em?
Yeah.
Let's see. This is a good one. If you are invited to a school as a recruit, who pays for travel and expenses? Really, really good question. So it really comes down to what type of visit this particular visit is going to be, whether it's an official visit or an unofficial visit. An unofficial visit would be the prospective student athlete and their family would be responsible for travel expenses and things along those lines. Where an official visit, the school would be taking care of that for you. In both situations, if you guys are going to the campus when they have some sort of on-campus let's say sport that's going on, maybe they invite you to a football game, a basketball game, something along those lines, I believe they can offer you up to 3 tickets, whether it is an official or unofficial visit. But the biggest difference between those two is whether the school is paying for those expenses or you'll have to pay your own way to get there.
Yeah. Awesome, guys. Well, that's all the time that we have for tonight. Again, thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. From Mike and I and from, the full team at Sports Recruits, we hope you and your family are staying as safe and healthy as you can during this time. Again, keep in mind, the Division I committee is meeting on May 27th to revisit this recruiting, dead period recruiting, and we will be posting about that on all social media accounts, so please follow that. We will be hosting a webinar next month regarding the June 15th date and all that you should be expecting with that and what you should be doing. But again, thank you guys so much for your time. You will receive a recording of this webinar, and we look forward to seeing you next month.
Yep. Stay safe, everyone. Thanks.
Bye, guys.